Now, the most reasonable talk show host from Sob Choppy to the Redneck Riviera, here is Bob Kerrigan.
And good evening. Welcome to Within Reason, taking your calls and comments and responding some to voicemails and emails. Had one lady leave a voicemail message, rather colorful, saying that everything you said is a lie. If you could be a little more specific, we'd probably address it point by point, unless you really believe that, since we were basically reading comments that were made by Sarah Palin, among other things. But let's talk about Miss Palin. We're going to talk a little bit about her church and her faith. Now, you need to understand something. These people wear their faith on their sleeve, and they can hardly wait to evangelize and explain to you the subtleties of their faith. It's huge. George Bush loved to talk about it, and the Republicans sort of brag about it, that they're the real churchy people in the country, and the real religious people, the godly-led people. Sarah Palin doesn't want to talk about it. But the reason she doesn't want to talk about it is that it's not a very pretty picture. She is from a very fundamentalist church. The sad thing about this church and the people in it and the organization we're going to talk about that she received this honorary degree gladly from believes the end times are coming, and that the contiguous 48 states are going to be devastated by fire and the end times, and there will be a flood of people going to Alaska. That's what they believe. She's never renounced that. Now, if we're going to talk about Obama's preacher, and I've said this before here, who basically, rather emphatically, talked about exploitation of black people and Hispanic people and minorities generally. If we're going to do that, we're going to blast Obama because he might have been there and might not have been there. What about a woman that stands up on the stage and, as you're going to see in this clip, brags about or talks about her great spiritual experience with this minister? Now, we're going to tell you a little about this minister. And this minister's involvement with a woman that he declared a witch, and his efforts to bring sanctions against her for witchcraft. We'll talk about that. And really, we need to ask you, I mean, have you had enough? Have you just had enough? And if you have, maybe you should say, if you're a Republican or a moderate or not committed or independent, maybe you should say, she has to submit herself to reasonable questioning by our reporters. We have to know more about somebody who claims they want to be vice president of the United States. One of the things that you might think a governor of Alaska would ask for prayers for would be maybe the poor Eskimos or the Inuits in Canada, somebody that was abused and treated terribly by the state and by the governments of Canada and Alaska. Or you might think that she would pray about all the alcoholics they have in Alaska, because so many people are on the dole in Alaska and they don't work and they have no employment history. They just lay around Fairbanks and drink because the government hands out checks. And of course, Sarah Palin's whole family receives their checks timely every month. They're all on welfare in Alaska. The entire population, if you've lived there a year, I mentioned this last week, 680,000 people, they're all on the dole. They all get checks, and Sarah Palin loves her check. Her husband, Todd, who's not working exactly, he loves his check. All the children, Tig, Tag, and Trag, and Trek, and all of them, they all get checks. Everybody gets checks in Alaska. You'd think she might be, concerned about people who don't work, have no employable job skills. You think part of her prayer consideration might be the fact that they have a terrible education system in Alaska and the worst high school graduation rate in the world, in the United States, not in the world. You might think that she would be concerned about people dying in Darfur well, anyway, we're going to see kind of what her concerns are in this clip, which we're going to play right now, that I think you might find actually quite revealing.
God is invading Alaska.
Master's Commission, Wasilla, Alaska has one purpose: to know God and to make Him known.
They're hungry for Him. They're passionate for His presence.
God has a destiny for the state of Alaska.
We make a way for the presence of God.
It is an intense discipleship training program.
Master's Commission is one of the keys in God's plan for Alaska, the United States, and the entire world. You will walk away changed.
This is where it's happening. It'll be the best thing you've ever done. Incredibly intense.
Master's Commission, Wasilla, Alaska. To know God and to make Him known.
And I'm thinking, what I need to do is strike a deal with you guys as you go out throughout Alaska. I can do my part in doing things like working really, really hard to get a natural gas pipeline, about a $30 billion project that's going to create a lot of jobs for Alaskans, and we'll have a lot of energy flowing through here. And pray about that also. I think God's will has to be done in unifying people and companies to get that gas line built. So pray for that. But I can do my job there in developing our natural resources and doing things like getting the roads paved and making sure our troopers have their cop cars and their uniforms and their guns and making sure our public schools are funded. But really all of that stuff doesn't do any good if the people of Alaska's heart isn't right with God. And that's going to be your job. As I'm doing my job, let's strike this deal. Your job is going to be out there reaching the people, hurting people throughout Alaska. And we can work together to make sure God's will be done here. Our leaders, our national leaders, are sending them out on a task that is from God. That's what we have to make sure that we're praying for, that there is a plan and that plan is God's plan. So bless them with your prayers of protection over our soldiers.
What we have for our governor, we gave her one of our diplomas, Master's Commission diplomas, for her to take back. And so this says a big thank you right across it from the Master's Commission. So maybe it's yours.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate this. And one last thing, as I travel around the state, it's really cool to get to visit other communities and visit other churches. And once in a while, a pastor will come up to me before the service starts and says, now, I don't know about your background, but, we welcome you to our worship service. And now don't be surprised if maybe a parishioner or two may want to raise their hands or clap. And I say, I grew up at Wasilla Assembly of God. Nothing freaks me out about the worship service.
Maybe it freaks you out. Nothing about the worship service freaks her out. Well, who is this pastor that she spoke so glowingly about? By the way, these clips are on YouTube, where she asks people to pray for the pipeline. The pastor whose prayer Sarah Palin says helped her to become governor of Alaska founded his ministry with a witch hunt against a Kenyan woman who he accused of causing car accidents through demonic spells. This is the pastor that has meant so much to her, to Sarah Palin. And as she said, I can't be surprised by anything that goes on here in the church, after the church I've been in, where people do all this bizarre stuff. I don't want to be rude, but if this is her faith that they all wear on their shirt sleeves, why can't somebody ask her about it? What do you believe? Do you believe that you are responsible to expedite the end times? Is that what you believe? Do you believe this is all part of God's will to destroy the United States because we're all sinners? Is that what you believe? Why can't we ask this woman these kinds of questions? I mean, she wants to introduce her brand of religion into our schools. She wants to stop women from any kind of control of their own bodies, including women that have been raped and subject to incest. She wants to do all of these in the name of God. This is one scary chick. This is Within Reason. Bob Kerrigan with you tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. This program is rebroadcast Monday night at 10 and Friday night at 10, and we'll be back next Wednesday at 7. Thank you for watching.